Welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast where your voice matters most. Hosted by Hall of Fame sportscaster Jim Powell. This is the show that puts fans at the heart of the conversation. Whether you're cheering in the stands, screaming at the TV, or debating with friends about the latest trades, Fans First is here to amplify your thoughts, your insights, and your love for the game.
We hope you all enjoyed last week's podcast with John Smoltz, a very entertaining and interesting conversation. And guess what? Something that good, we can't just cut it off and stop there. We're going to bring you instead a holiday bonus edition of Fans First, a sports podcast. It's part 2 of our conversation with John Smoltz, the Hall of Famer, right here. We've got 2 Braves here, and Tyler and you, John. I want to, ask you guys, what do you see ahead for the Braves this offseason? What do they need to do to get where they want to be in terms of postseason prospects, et cetera? What kind of the winter do you think you expect to see out of Alex Anthopoulos?
Well, I just think if they can get health, they're right back to the forefront of one of the favorites, even though the Dodgers have loaded up. I hated that Max Fried had to go somewhere else. I'm a big Max Fried fan. I think he hasn't reached his ceiling yet. I don't know what they're going to do to make up for that. They have some young pitchers. Again, it goes back to developing young pitchers. You've got to be able to develop so that they're ready to pitch long-term in the big leagues. You can't bounce these guys back and forth. I hate it. I hate it for them. It's unfair to expect a 21-year-old to be able to make every start and have a 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5 quality start. He's got to learn. So to me, they've got to stick with some guys and stick with them long enough to learn to develop to their greatest potential. It comes down to health and that starting pitching, and they got to figure out what that rotation is going to look like.
I think that's a good point, John. Talking about sticking with them for a period of time. You're like, early in my career, it was a little bit of up and down. I was a backup. Okay, you're going to be the starter. You're not doing that well. Now you're not. I think there's a lot of mental capacity, a lot of mental strength that can be gained by having that sort of commitment. Like, hey, you got these next 2 months. Show us what you got. Instead of, hey, you got this start. If it doesn't go well, go hit I-85 and head back to Gwinnett.
Yeah, that's the one part of industry that I'm telling you, I've already answered it. They don't know how to help these guys. They can only show them the results to the test. They can give them the information that spits out. This is your spin rate. This is the pitch you should be using. This. They have taken the career from the pitcher and made it theirs. The pitcher has to own his career, and he's not given the luxury of pitching the way he wants to. And that's a sad part of the game. And because we're looking for quick fixes, we're looking for the Syndergaards. We're looking for all the studs that just show up on a vine and dominate. Well, what happens to them? They don't last. We've got to get the ability to repeat your mechanics, give them 35 starts, 30 starts. I know it's not 35 anymore. Quit babying everybody and giving them 6 and 7 days off. Allow the rotation and their athleticism to be the biggest part of what gets them confidence. If they did that to Glavine, Maddox, myself, you'd never hear our names in the hall. You'd never hear of our names. We're 2-7. Glavine almost lost 20 games. Maddox almost lost 20 games. We learned. Now, I'm not asking people to learn at 20 losses, but the game has changed. And you've got to give these guys, this brain of a computer gets fried and fragmented when you indirectly tell them you're no good. Or how about this? Quit making every starter a reliever or reliever a starter. There used to be, you were always a starter until you couldn't do that, and then you became a reliever. Now they're bouncing everybody around because of their arms and lack of ability to pitch deep into the game.
So do you boys think that the Braves will make some splashes here in the offseason? Will Anthopoulos get really aggressive or just sort of fine-tune what he's got?
I think he's going to, without knowing, their whole game plan, he's not a guy that's going to sign a pitcher to a long-term deal. It doesn't seem that way, which I don't blame him, that even though that's in vogue right now. I think there's always those under-the-radar quality moves that maybe you look at it and you go, this team is going to be known for their offense. If they stay healthy, they're going to bludgeon people, right? But what they have to do is realize that if they're going to win a World Series, they also can't strike out 14 times a game. They've got to put the ball in play in the right places and play fundamental baseball. They have to have a complementary rotation. They don't have to have a rotation that strikes out 14 and see where Strider fits in and when he comes back. That's a whole nother subject. And I think then they're one of the teams to beat, because if you can get to the end of the year with health, you can beat anybody. And the Dodgers basically almost forego their chance to win a World Series with all the injuries they had to their pitching staff. And now I think they have a 7 or 8 man pitching staff they're going to go into next year with.
Yeah, they're stacked. They're pretty deep up and down offensively and pitching wise. I've always kind of had the train of thought, if you can make it to the end of the year, you give me 2 starters hot, 3 relievers hot, 3 batters hot. We got a really good shot to really get deep in this.
Yep.
List Fans First show is a full sports conversation that we have each time, and I want to switch us over a little bit, flip the switch on John Smoltz and change his gear a little bit, and talk a little bit about college football. In recent weeks, I've been watching what happens mostly after the games, more so than in the games, where, you know, opposing teams, they come into a place, and if they win, they go out there and want to plant their flag in the middle of the field. The other team comes back out. You have fisticuffs. We had the Texas-Georgia college football game early in the year where basically the Texas fans fought their Longhorn defense some time by peppering the field with everything they could get their hands on. There was a lengthy delay to allow that defense to rest. Didn't, necessarily change the outcome of the game. Obviously didn't change the outcome of the game, but potentially could have. But I'm a little concerned with the way, it used to be that you tear down goalposts if you won the national championship or the SEC championship or whatever. Now they tear down the goalposts and drag them and put them in a river in the third quarter is what they want to do if they can't be held back by police. What are your guys' thoughts on the dynamics at work at college football right now? Starting with you, John.
Well, I'm bothered by this whole notion that college sports has turned into professional sports, and they're professionals now. NIL had no cap. You could be making more as a backup in college football than a starting quarterback in the NFL, which is already happening. So now college football and college coaches are thinking differently. The whole landscape's different. It's professional sports. And when I say professional sports, good luck trying to have a college mindset team concept in a professional that independent contractor is making a lot of money. They'll just go somewhere else. They'll just say, that's the nature and where we're going. So as far as some of the other stuff, we know social media making splashes there, trying to do something crazy always is part of the narrative. But now when you see the movement and you see the landscape of college sports, you're seeing some great coaches leave the industry because of it. I think college, there was no doubt they had to do something, but they didn't stop it from becoming uncontrollable. And I think that's where it is now. And it's too bad. I love college sports. I think the aspirations to making it to all their professional dreams is great. But now with everything that's involved, it is hard to maintain some sense of sanity when it comes to those subjects you're talking about.
I think the guilty party is the people that have condoned it in the past and all of a sudden made it acceptable. Honestly, I felt this way towards the end of my career, how the bat flips and the home run celebrations and all those shenanigans, like that wasn't really condoned early in my career. And I definitely wasn't really condoned in Smoltz's career, but all of a sudden, somehow somebody accepted it. And then all of a sudden there was an expectation and it became the norm. And now it's no longer disrespectful to the team or the opponent or the pitcher. And I've just never really believed in all that. And I just kind of think it's a trickle-down effect of not being enforced at an earlier period of time.
That's probably spot on, Tyler. I don't know. Every generation, of course, looks back at the generation that's chasing them and says, well, those guys don't know what they're doing. And we were better behaved and we handled the game the right way, and they're not doing that anymore. And they just laugh at us because we're old geezers. So, I don't know how you stop it. I think a great point about the social media, because if somebody can go viral and it turns them into an influencer where they can sit in their house and make $1 million. They're not going to stop. Nobody's going to stop. So one thing that I feel must stop is this invasion of biological men into women's athletics. I don't know how you guys feel about it. You don't have to comment. Some people feel like it's controversial. I feel like it's black and white. I mean, when women are in the locker room preparing for a swim meet or a volleyball game, and they're getting changed, and they're doing what just like men do in their locker room, what the women do in their locker room, and then all of a sudden some man walks in with no clothes on and no apparent way to feel like they have anything in common with women at all, and they it's terrorizing those players. I mean, how many players playing college athletics, chasing scholarships, trying to take advantage of Title IX, which was a very noble piece of legislation that now has basically been crumpled up and thrown in the trash can. I mean, how many of those women have missed out on those opportunities, missed out on the chance to play for a championship, missed out on the chance to earn a full scholarship? And to me, it's just, I don't, the NCAA, last I saw, NCAA said, well, if the women don't like it when the men, the biological men come into their locker room, they can find someplace else to shower and go to the bathroom. And I'm like, how stuck in mud does one organization have to be for somebody to say something that dumb?
Well, for me, it goes all the way back to the social media. We need heroes again, and we need people not afraid to get canceled. I don't care if I get canceled because I don't have any social media, so anybody can say whatever they want. I don't pay attention. But we need fathers to stand up and be heroes again, because it's not right. There's nothing in it that's right. And people that cow down to in leadership, they're afraid of getting canceled, in my opinion. And I think we've now been given a second chance in philosophies that can start working and get back to the basics. I'm a fundamental man of faith that believes, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. I wouldn't want to ever subject my daughters to something that is just not fair. We've always had fun in the past about the battle of the sexes and about which sports can do what and how they would fare. We absolutely know there are physical sports that have no chance between a biological man and a biological woman. So I think your point is spot on, but it goes back to people turning away from standing up what's right, allowing a foot to enter the door. And then it's no different than some of the conversations we've had about people before. They let it happen. Next thing you know, it becomes an inherent right. So I don't even know how I would be if I had to go back in time and raise my 5 daughters in this time frame and run into that situation. Would not be probably be you would be hearing a lot about John Smoltz standing up in the right way.
I think I may also be hearing about Jim Powell and John Smoltz sharing a jail cell together because of my 3 daughters and your 5 daughters. I don't think we would have been able to stop ourselves at some point.
No, you're right.
I'm not there yet, but I'm not excited to experience it. I got 2 daughters and 3 boys. My youngest daughter is a decent athlete. Luckily, my oldest daughter is a genius. I don't really have to worry about the athletic gene in her. But my youngest one, she's 7. Like, there's no talent, and I hope there's changes made if she does continue down that athletic path before she gets there. Because, I think I'd be in the same boat. I wouldn't condone that.
And somebody asked me, why? How is that fair to the biological men if they're not allowed to play in the women's sports? And I'm like, they can still go play in the men's sports. I mean, that's where they belong. They still have that. It's not like they either get on a women's team or they don't get to compete athletically. So that's a false argument in my mind. And I do think this thing is tilting back the other way, thankfully, and I hope that continues. Guys, I've really enjoyed the conversation today. Really, really entertaining. I know, Smoltzy, we're going to try and rope Chipper in one time. We'd love to get you and Chipper on too and let you guys go back and forth. You guys have a lot of history and know a lot about each other. I think that would be very entertaining, both in terms of knowledge you would share as well as the fun we would have. So I hope we can get you back on with us.
Yeah, I'd look forward to it. And obviously, I love the game I played, baseball. I think the athletes are so great. I think they're in best position to be and to endure greatness. My biggest plea is please find a way to keep them healthy. This is becoming such a problem. And I'm tired of talking about it because there's ways to fix it. And I think even Chipper, knowing from the hitting side, and Tyler, there are some challenges, don't get me wrong, but I love this game. There are pitchers that would make our staff look like we are fifth graders, but they can't stay healthy enough, Jim. They got to be able to stay healthy to live out their greatness.
Yeah, 100%. John Smoltz was great, wasn't he, Tyler? That was we got an earful, as we always do with John, but he is very interesting to listen to.
He's one of the best, man. I love the part about talking about arms and health and everything, not just at the big league level, but every time we see him on TV, if he has like an open mic situation, he's talking about the health of the arms of our youth coming up and everything. And that's something I think I'm actually going to reach out and talk to him about, just coaching two of my boys' travel teams, get his thoughts on it and everything. Because obviously it's easy when you want to win a big championship game on a Sunday to pitch your number one guy for 75 pitches, but it's not really the best move when they're 10 years old, So, and I know he's so opinionated on a lot of that stuff too, and rightfully so. He's been through issues in a long career, so he's a good guy to pick his brain a little bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, the only advice I got when I was a very young pitcher was just work on your fastball command and your changeup. And I was like, well, my fastball is my changeup. So do you have any other ideas?
You got to change off your change. Honestly, like we're playing in a few tournaments just this fall. They're like Sunday only tournaments. So if you end up winning, you have 3 games in one day if you're going to win the whole thing. We're facing kids, 10-year-olds, that are throwing breaking balls, sliders, and some of my players are coming back. Like it looked funny, it was spinning weird. Like, what do I do? I'm like, wait for it to get there and hit it. But in my brain, I'm like, that's a 10-year-old throwing a curveball and a slider and a fastball right now. Like, I have like 2 pitchers on my team that throw a fastball changeup. And they're only because they can actually throw strikes with their fastballs. Everyone else is just like, just throw strikes. I don't care if you throw it hard or slow. Just don't walk everybody. Just throw strikes.
Seems simple. You and John make it seem easy that way, but for some reason, yeah, you still see the 100 miles an hour coming out like all day long in Major League Baseball games, and it starts obviously much earlier than that. You don't get to 100 overnight, so they've been pushing it for a long time at the behest of someone who's probably a lot older and has more financial interests than they should have in these kids.
And so, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think there would have been more guys approaching 100 miles an hour in the 90s if it was more the current philosophy? Or do you think it's some of the science and physical development type things we try to do with our players now that is getting a lot of them to make that jump? Because I kind of feel like it's a little bit of both.
I would agree. I mean, the ability they have to break down your body frame and tweak the smallest things to open up just a little more velocity, let you tap into a little bit more. They didn't have that back in the Smoltz era. Those guys were just, figuring it out and being smart guys. And if you want to have a good major league career, you got to figure it out because you didn't have 100 pitching coaches along the way. So, yeah, I think it's as with most things, it's a bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny when he was talking some of that, about the ability to pitch instead of just 100% on everything. And I've thought about this in years past, but like I felt like some of the best pitchers I caught, maybe not even necessarily in the big leagues. They were guys that didn't have high velocity, but they knew how to pitch. They changed speeds, changing direction ball, front door cutter, back door sinkers, changing speeds off of each other, elevating and everything. And, so you just had me thinking about that. I think one of the only exceptions to the rule for me is Sale. But then again, he came up as a reliever and like a 20-year-old fresh out of college, and he was our closer, so he was throwing 100. But then all of a sudden, when he became a starter, and I think probably partially like working with, we acquired Peavy at that time. We had John Danks, Furley. Those guys didn't light up the radar gun at all. So that was probably a big part of it, because when he became a starter, it's like he would hump up to 96, 97 when he had to. But, first pitch of the game is a little 91 mile an hour two-seamer down on the way. You want to roll it over, go ahead. And then I felt like Verlander was that way too, and Scherzer similar. I guess, And now we're talking about it all kind of coincides, right? Like we're talking like the two longest pitchers currently, and you knew Verlander in situations, a big situation, you were getting 98, 99, 100. But other than that, if you're leading off an inning, you're getting 92, 93. Luckily, I led off a lot of innings, so I was able to ambush that 92-mile-an-hour heater and square it up.
I still laugh at, there's so many legendary stories about Greg Maddux and, mound visits where somebody wants to come out and take him out of the game because he's, deep in the game, whatever the circumstances. And he's like, I'll tell you what, if this next guy doesn't pop out to the third baseman, you can take me out. For next pitch, popped him out, third baseman doesn't move, catches it in his tracks. And we do the same thing with Lemke, second baseman, tell Lemke, move 3 steps to your right. Ground ball right to that spot. Easy out, getting over. They weren't throwing hard. They were just throwing smart.
Yeah. They're knowing what they're doing with it, to Smoltz's point. They knew how to put it where they wanted to, for the most part. Mistakes still happen, but a lot to be said for that.
Tyler, another great show, man. You did a great job. I really enjoyed listening to you and John Smoltz. I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas.
You too.
We'll probably reconvene again right after the first of the year and break down some more sports. I hope you enjoyed the extended interview with John Smoltz. It turned into a 2-parter with a holiday bonus for you. If you like our Fans First content, you can help us by making sure you're subscribed to all of our social networks. And don't forget about our Fans First website at fansfirstpodcast.com. To be included as a guest on an episode, send your voice memo, your video file, or written memo to jim@fansfirstpodcast.com. Please keep your submissions no more than 45 seconds, maybe 60 seconds in length. We want you to be a part of our show, and we'd love to have you. So glad you joined us for today's episode. We look forward to seeing you again very soon on fansfirstpodcast.com.
Stay tuned, stay passionate, and keep celebrating the sport you love. Visit us at fansfirstpodcast.com to explore more. Sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive updates and follow the podcast on social media to join our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Your voice matters to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts and connect with fellow fans. See you next time.